Our next speaker is Dr. Shelley Kaehr. She's written several books. I'm not going to name them all or I'd be here forever. But she's going to be talking today about how spiritual shifts will affect your daily reality. Please help me welcome Dr. Shelley Kaehr.
Okay, I'm going to bring this down here. Okay, there, that's better. So how you guys doing? Great. Well, thanks so much for coming out. I have not been to the show in a while, and I'm just so glad to be here. So what we're going to talk about today is just things that I've been thinking about, particularly over the last several months. And I've got some new books that are getting ready to be released, so we'll be talking a lot about what we're talking about today, although those are not currently out yet. Okay. I have been working professionally in this field now for about 8 years, which is kind of really freaking me out right now. I don't believe it's been that long. It's been kind of a long, strange trip, and then some. And, you know, I'm sure I don't have to tell all of you how much our world has changed over the last decade. I mean, or even the last 50, we don't even want to think about the last 20 or 30 or 40 years. That would be too much, because the ways our parents were raised compared to what's going on now when we've got this technological world that we live in is absolutely unbelievable. And so what I want to talk about today is, you know, how has this happened? How have we, you know, transcended space and time? When you think of the amount of advancements that we've made in the last few years compared to like all the hundreds of years and maybe even thousands of years before that, it's absolutely stunning. And it's just things that, as we're nearing the end of the Mayan calendar, which I will also address my personal opinions on that subject, I think there's definitely energetic shifts that are going on. And it's not just the people who are out here on the circuit now talking to you about, wow, you know, we're all love and light and there's frequencies changing going on. I mean, these are things I've been talking about for years, but now we're starting to really see the results of what's happening as frequencies and vibratory energies and stuff like that around the planet are changing, that really our day-to-day life today definitely doesn't look the way it looked when I first started in this field. I mean, more and more people are starting to wake up and starting to just see a different and a more wider vision about the way the world really is. And it's kind of like the movie The Matrix, when we saw The Matrix and there was Neo kind of waking up going, wait a minute, I'm not really plugged into this fantasy computer. It's like we're actually now starting to do that ourselves. And we're starting to see the things that we've been talking about, that there really is an emergence and a wider interest in spiritual matters. This isn't just things now that we're talking about anymore. We can actually see the physical evidence of that. I mean, for The Secret to be on Oprah, I mean, that's one of the biggest, latest ones, but I mean, that's just the latest of many others. That, you know, and then the TV programming that we have on Medium and, you know, the Ghost Whisperer and all this kind of, I mean, for people to really be kind of embracing different things in the popular culture, even if it's at a fictional level, at the infiltration level that it is now happening, in my opinion, is really a miracle. But it's exactly what we've been talking about. It's kind of like, you know, you're just him-hawing along, and one day you just go, wow, you just like look back and you think of just how far we've come. It's hard to believe. I'm kind of having this, I don't know, I guess it's because I've been doing this for so long now. Just lately, I've been having this feeling of, I'm kind of right back where I was before I got into this industry. I'm going back into the corporations again. If you guys had talked to me when I was at this expo last time and said, are you going to be going back to do training in corporate America? I would have said, no way. But there's something going on where the whole mass consciousness, not just the people here, are starting to shift enough into the kind of ways of thinking that we're thinking about in these arenas here, that it's kind of like we're all able to now meet in some kind of happy medium, that people are just more open to different ways of viewing the world. We're more open to spirit and source and God and the creator and how that's all working in our lives. And, you know, you can take a look at some of the different things that have been going on in the world in the last 5 or 6 years, you know, that have been what we might want to label as bad or unpleasant, but in a way, you know, you can just kind of see how all of those things have played together to kind of bring us to where we are now. And one of the things I've been doing, I was teaching a lecture series at the Unity Church last year called Creating Your Life. You know, it's all the stuff we've all been talking about the laws of attraction and how the person really goes from where they are today and step by step gets to where you want to go. I mean, it's one thing to think about my Porsche out in the parking lot, but what were the steps that I take to get there, right? And really helping people get in touch with that part of themselves, because the nature of my private practice has really been growing and shifting and changing over these years as well, because I think Spirit's always attracting people to you who are either going through what you're going through. You know, of course, you know, the counselor always needs counseling. Thank you. Okay. But also just, it's to me like a reflection of what's going on in the collective consciousness. And one of the most interesting things, you know, I started out as a grief recovery therapist, did a lot of past life regressions. We did that for a while. And I was doing my parallel universe thing. And then that's when What the Bleep was out. We were starting to think, wow, maybe we're really, you know, able to create our reality with our thoughts. And now we've got The Secret, and we realize we're attracting things to us and stuff like that. And what's happening as time goes on is more and more people are starting to, like I said, wake up and go, you know, my God, this is not my beautiful house. This is not my beautiful life. You know, what am I doing? I've got to come up with something that is meaningful in my life. I don't want to work this job, and am I helping anybody? And is there a reason why I'm here? And I don't want to do this job anymore. What am I going to do? I kind of want to do this, but I don't know how to get there. And I just think that's kind of a reflection of where a lot of people are right now. A lot of people are, in a forthcoming book I'm going to be describing, like how can you, let's say you want to get out of that mainstream career and you want to transition into a more spiritual based vocation. How are you going to be doing that and stuff like that? And so I think that people in mass quantities or whatever, maybe I'm thinking about the cone heads this morning, I'm sorry, mass quantities. Losing it. Okay. Anyway, people in mass are starting to say, wait a minute, this life isn't maybe what I once thought it was, you know? And I really remember back to when I first started getting into this work. I mean, a friend of mine was killed. I woke up one day, I was working a job I hated, and I said, my God, you know, what am I doing? I need to make a difference. And I think everybody wants to feel like that. And when we look at, you know, the way we're working and the way we're living and the way that is continually changing, we could go back to, this is kind of a history lesson in a sense, but, you know, back in the old days, we all had our own business, like maybe let's say 100 years ago even. We all would have our own business, and maybe you're a farmer and, you know, you run the shop down the road, you do the cleaning and you do sewing or whatever, and we all kind of barter and we kind of live in this happy little community. And then one day the Industrial Revolution came along, and Joe Blow over here built a factory and came out and dangled a carrot under your nose about, hey, I'll give you some really cool things if you'd be willing to leave your businesses and come over here and work for me for a while. And so we did, and we've basically been living in that model now for, you know, 100 years, maybe 50, 60, I don't know, years. And now, you know, I want to talk about this because, see, now we're going back into the old way again. Everything's going to come full circle, where we're going to say, wait a minute, I really want to go work for myself, but I want to get away from the corporation, because we've seen the fall now over the last decade of the corporations going down and all the scandals and stuff. It's kind of like the Piscean age, not only in corporate America, but within churches and different things, like the veils coming down. We're all seeing the puppet master behind the beautiful curtain and stuff like that, and we're seeing what's really going on. And so what's happening is, in mass, more and more people are starting to say, I need to go become self-employed, or I need to run a business on the side, and how do I do that? And I think we're going to start seeing over the next 20 years more and more people going back to working for themselves, because we already are. So what I'm saying is that when I'm seeing, like in private practice, is people who are kind of going through that transition. Either the company pulled the rug out from under you, or you're waking up saying, this is not meaningful, and I can't live in a life that isn't meaningful, or whatever. However it is, it's all happening. I just think it's getting ready to start happening even in more and more mass, as we start becoming more and more aware of our own power within, our own self-reliance and stuff like that, that we start to look toward ways that we can create our living and our livelihood without really having to depend on others, if you know what I mean. And then the other piece of it is, many years ago, before I came back here and went into my hypnotherapy training and stuff like that, I used to work as the membership director for the historical district in Denver, Colorado. And this is when they were really one of the models for the whole United States about urban redevelopment, where the city down there in downtown Denver was their Skid Row slums. It was a disaster. And somebody came in and said, hey, we're going to take these big warehouses and we're going to turn them into lofts, and we're going to put a grocery store down there and a little dry cleaner so that people could start building a sense of community again and building a sense of just doing things within your little geographical area. And so it was just so fascinating to be in that, because now you see this happening all over the country. And why is this happening? Because at one point, some years ago, let's say 30 years ago, we wanted to move out of the cities because we were in this mentality of, I need to get away from everyone and I need to go plot myself as far away from my fellow neighbors as I can. And I want to get away from them. And so I either live in the community or I work in the community, but I don't do both. And so what's ended up happening is then, now because of the internet and the technology, in my opinion, we've become so isolated from each other that we don't ever even see each other. We just send an email and we're just getting that, I've been talking for years, when you're in front of a TV or a computer, you're just like, you're kind of in a trance. And I think we're starting to wake up and say, my God, I don't even know who my neighbors are because I'm sitting in front of this box all day. And I think that this whole energy is part of the thing that's driving now all these re-urbanization projects. We're like, wait a minute, I want to go back to the city. I want to see some people. I want to know my neighbors. I want to walk to the neighborhood dry cleaner or whatever, And I think it's just kind of an interesting time to be alive. We're really starting to see, just the shifts going on. I mean, a lot of my work is talking about energetic healing and the different energy, the different layers of the person's subtle energy system, and how I really believe that your thoughts are things, but just like The Secret, of course, but that those thoughts are actually occupying space in your energetic field and are either enlivening you or kind of wearing you down and things like that. And I think that, my friend Greg Braden talks about like the shifts, the magnetic pole frequency shifts that are going on around the world. I mean, scientists can really measure now, and we know that the frequency around planet Earth is actually increasing. And in my opinion, this is part of the reason why we now have this sense of like time speeding up. Things are going quicker. Sometimes things are surreally slow. I don't know. How do you guys experience that both ways? I mean, where it's quick, but yet it's slow. Like we could live a whole lifetime here in this little 30-minute time block, but yet when we really look at the progress and the things we're making, it's just moving at lightning speed. And I just think we're getting ready to go back to where we used to be, where we want to be in community, we want to be near each other. There's that whole parable of Atlantis. When I wrote my book, Edgar Cayce's Guide to Gemstones, a lot of that was talking about the lost civilization of Atlantis and the lessons there, that if we just rely on technology and we're not building relationships with each other and really thinking about what matters, then maybe things aren't going to turn out so good for us. And so some of us think of that Atlantean story as kind of almost like a model to what's going on now. Are we going to really wake up and get it? Are we going to be able to really create world peace? Are we going to be able to just put our weapons down and go home, or whatever's going on over there that we don't like to see? I'm really of the opinion that yes, we will do that. In the world that I live in, which is the world of rose-colored glasses, I really believe that we're going to get it. We're going to wake up to what's going on, and we're all going to become the peaceful people that we know how to be. I mean, I just really believe in that. There's always got to be hope. I mean, And I think that as we go through these next years, there's a lot of this doom and gloom stuff out there that we get exposed to all the time, too, about the Mayan calendar is ending. And so what does that really mean for us? Does that mean that, we're going to get wiped off the planet tomorrow? Or does that mean, what I think it means is that because of the frequency shifts, the time's changing. It's like we're lifting up out of one reality into another reality where things are a little more even keeled, we're a little more peaceful. And so yes, it's the end of an era, in my opinion, and not the end of like the free world as we know it. Well, it is the end of the world as we know it, like REM said in their song, okay? But it's not the end of the world, in my opinion. And I think we're going to continue to see, you know, when we talk about, like, some of my books are talking about different dimensions of reality, the fourth dimension being time. We're living down here in the third dimension. And in one of the books, I'm talking about, there was a beautiful book written by this man named Edwin Abbott in the 1800s, and it was called Flatland. And it was a story of a little man who lived in Flatland, and he lived in the second dimension where you're just a line. And so he's a little line and I'm a little line, but if you're just a line, there's just really there's not much you can see. You know, you can see the length of the sky, you can kind of see this, but how would you explain to these little guys what's really going on out here? And by the same token, I believe that when we're raising our frequencies and the planetary frequencies are changing, the reason why time starts to warp, because we are now starting to really get that it really is an illusion, and we actually are starting to consciously see and notice the fact that it's an illusion by either time drawing out or time, you know, going by very quickly, is that we're moving up into more of a higher dimensional frequency where, you know, like that, you guys saw The Secret, right? Okay, you know, I keep talking about that movie where the guy's sitting there and he's reading a magazine and there's an elephant and he goes, oh, you know, there's an elephant in his living room, you know, but just because he thought about it that quick. Yes, there's a time between thought and manifestation, but in my opinion, it's getting shorter and shorter. I mean, we've been hearing this and hearing this and hearing this. Be careful what you think about. It's going to show up. But I think it's becoming more and more of a prevalent idea than we ever really thought about. I mean, but we don't notice that we're creating things. That's the other thing. I mean, we don't realize that, you know, that salad I ordered at lunch, maybe I created that maybe earlier this morning. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just interesting time to be here, I think, in a lot of different ways. And I think we're going to continue to see our abilities to get exactly what we're asking for showing up in shorter amounts of time. We're going to be able to hopefully experience even greater amounts, the illusion of being able to stretch time, hopefully getting into the energies of wanting to be in community and realizing that we cannot lock ourselves up in front of the computer. We need to get out and be with people, which is what we're doing here this weekend, and that is awesome. And I just think it's going to be, I still believe it's going to be good. I think things are going to work out. I believe in world peace. I just believe in it. I just always have. So do you guys have questions or comments, things you're thinking about? You're stunned? Yes.
When you say divine calendar is the end of time, my understanding, what I've always read about is it's the end of this time. We're going to a dimension where there will be no time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yes, like it's just irrelevant.
Not the end of time, so that's where the religious universe looks at as the end of times. Yeah, it's the end of time. That's it. You ever heard of it?
Yes, that it's more the, you know, the ancient Aztecs believed in the different eras, like we're coming to the end of an era. Yes, maybe it was a majorly long era, but it's the end of the era and not the end of time. Yes, I agree. And I do believe, yes, it's because we're transitioning into a time when time doesn't really matter. Speaking of that, I stopped wearing a watch about a decade ago, but yet, when I just ask Spirit, I show up wherever I need to be, and I'm always on time. Or somebody else always has a watch. I mean, I don't think the watch is irrelevant. We have an inner knowing and a wisdom within us that I think that we are given if we are given the opportunity to use it. And I think time and where we're supposed to be and all that kind of stuff is going to become less and less relevant. It'll still be relevant as it is to the matrix, but I mean, like I said, you still see corporate America is starting to make major shifts now also in the way they're doing things. I talked to a dear friend of mine who I hadn't seen in a while in here who is out there in corporate America really doing hypnosis and calling it stress management. Hey, and like I said, they're open to it now. It's wonderful that we can, you know, just all be open-minded to different kinds of ways of thinking. So thanks. Anybody else? Yes.
You mentioned about the loss of Atlantis. Is there a unique culture or?
The culture of Atlantis. Yeah, I was referring to Edgar Cayce, who is the really great psychic who lived in the early 1900s, and he made a lot of prophecies, and one of the things he discussed a lot in his work was about a potential civilization of Atlantis that could have existed down like in what's now like the modern day Bahamas, and they're starting to do archaeological digs, and they're starting to discover certain things down there that they believe could have belonged to some civilization that theoretically would have predated anything that we had ever known about before. And so there's, some people had believed historically that Atlantis was just kind of like a fairy tale that was giving us kind of a, like a little story that was kind of explaining the way things are going to turn out in our life if we don't choose to follow it, while other people like Casey and others really believe it was real. But in the more fairy tale, like what is this about, kind of the theme of Atlantis was that it was about a bunch of very highly advanced civilization of beings, like we are now, thank you very much, okay, who got very into technology and very into stuffology, and basically ended up destroying the civilization as a result of the fact that they were probably too smart for their own good. And so nowadays people are saying, are we going to go there again? We like to use Atlantis kind of as a model to say, are we going to go there again, people, or are we now evolved enough to get that we're even smarter than we were then, and we're really going to get it, and we're going to just be technological but be compassionate as well, and, Is it related to the aliens? Oh, the Palladians? Okay, wow. Yeah, that's a good question. The Palladians, wow. Some people believe they have ties with ancient Egypt, which would have been after Atlantis. If, we think Atlantis was maybe 1 million or maybe up to maybe a civilization that could have spanned as long as 1 million years, but was 1 million years ago, whereas Egypt, I don't know what we've decided on Egypt, how long ago that was. That some people believe that those pyramids were built by, extraterrestrial beings and things like that, which maybe they were. I'm starting to believe that all this stuff, at least if you believe in the many worlds theory, which I do, that anything that we're daydreaming about, like unicorns and leprechauns and whatever else, that all those things, in my opinion, probably do exist somewhere. Because I've started to do some fiction writing now, and you just don't know where this stuff's coming from, So you think it must have been created somewhere. And so in some civilization, the aliens probably built the pyramid, and some other poor civilization, the poor guy probably just lifted those stones on his back. Maybe. I don't know. And everything in between, I think it's all possible. So the question we're asking ourselves now is, are we going to really pull this thing together? Enough of us are thinking in a very strong, like mind that we would like to see peace, prosperity, and just an even-keeled reality going on right now. And in my opinion, there's all that theory about if enough of us think this way, we're going to start seeing shifts. And so the message today is, keep going, because we're making some progress. We are. I really believe that it's happening, and it's going to continue to happen and all as well. Yes. And they're giving me the boot in 1 minute. Ready? Go.
Sorry. You were talking about the end of the Piscean era, and I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on maybe dawning of Aquarius and how maybe that might tie into the Mayan calendar ending at a certain age, and certain past events in the past like 5 or 6 years that kind of lead up to that, and everybody in this mass consciousness, we're on this plane of existence where we're thinking, free will for ourselves. And I just wanted to get any thoughts on the dawning of the age of Aquarius.
Yeah, it just seems like the Mayan calendar represented an era of the Piscean kind of energy. And like you said, it's done now. Now we're into this whole new energy. I mean, where thoughts are being manifested right now. Time doesn't mean anything. We really can get up out of the drama and just start being and loving and just, loving our neighbor. I mean, I'm not trying to sound like a flower child from the 60s, even though I probably was, but I'm trying to say that really, you know how the longer you live, you just kind of get up out of the illusions and say, all this stuff, it just doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is just love, And And we don't have to go in a light tunnel and have a near-death experience and all that to get that. I think that it's happening. Just like, yeah, exactly. So, all right, 2 booths. I got to wrap it up. I'm at 2 booths this time. As soon as you walk in the door of the expo, if you make a left, I'm at the booth for the American Institute of Holistic Theology. This is the alternative healing school where I got my Ph.D. It's awesome. You should come see us over there. I am running a CD special. We're getting ready to start mass producing my meditation CDs. So I've got some of they're just kind of stamped. They're not like shrink wrap. That's what I want to say. We're running them. They are full-blown hypnotic regression CDs. They are 3 for $20 this weekend. If you want to get my books, I have 15 books out now, but not all of them are here, but most of them are at the Angel Workshop. As soon as you walk into the main display of the Expo Center, go look right at your right there, and there's Tammy, and she's got all my books, and she's running 20% off on all the books at the Angel Workshop. And you can come see me at my office, which is in Flower Mound, and that you guys are awesome, and I'm so glad you could be here today. Thank you.